You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
First day of the new administration, we have got some protesting going on in Portland and Seattle. They are calling for radical change. Today's topic, Scorning Biden. Protesters in Portland, Oregon and Seattle called for more radical change. Before we jump into it, if you're new here, thanks for joining. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own Summit Properties Northwest and Reynolds and Kline Appraisal, but I am, more importantly, your host of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Couldn't figure out what that was. I read the news. I'm a real estate guy that reads the news. Let's jump on in. Enough of the pleasantries, right? In Portland, Oregon and Seattle, protesters marched through the downtown areas on Wednesday, carrying signs opposing the police. We got to tally this up. They're opposing the police, immigration authorities, and government in general. And some people in each city vandalized buildings, symbolizing institutional power. I know here in Seattle, they broke windows out of the first Starbucks down by Pike Place Market. It's kind of one of those historic stores. It's like, that's the first Starbucks. That's so cool. And of course, they want to break out the windows because why wouldn't you? I mean, to get your message across, you've got to cause as much destruction as possible because that is the way that people will view your whatever it is that you message to get across. That's how people are going to view your message in the best of light, right? I mean, this is showcasing our message. We're going to bash out your windows. In Portland, about 200 people clad in black. Again, the media is, all right, we're not going to call out who they are because they might come and get us. They might dox us, but they're clad. I'm going to give you a hint. They're clad in black. Clad in black. This is not Black Lives Matter, right? Even though they are basically running on the coattails of Black Lives Matter. Those two messages are kind of intertwined there, but Black Lives Matter has kind of stepped aside and they're no longer out marching. Haven't seen much from them. Their contribution to this destruction of buildings, it's been minimal as of late. So in Portland, about 200 people clad in black marched to the local Democratic headquarters, where some of them smashed windows and tipped over garbage containers, lighting the contents of one on fire. That's a standard trick. All right, we are going to take a garbage can, we're going to dump it out in the middle of the street, and then we're going to light it on fire because nothing says progress and change like garbage on fire. And if you've seen this look, it's like, that looks like a war zone, but not messed up enough, just kind of like, what are you doing? You're lighting some garbage on fire? Really? Huh. Okay. Yeah, let me sign up for your organization and let me be part of your group because I love lit garbage on a Wednesday evening. I mean, the smell of lit garbage in the morning, there's nothing better, right? Those who took to the streets on Wednesday said they were a mix of anarchists, anti-fascists, and racial justice protesters. They've always got to throw the racial justice protesters because that's how all of this started. And they're basically running on the coattails of racial justice because that's what's in vogue right now. The whole anarchists and anti-fascists, that's their thing. But they're gonna pivot off of the racial justice protesters because that has, since the whole George Floyd thing, they're going to run on that as their platform until everybody realizes, there's no racial justice in there. I think these people are up to something. These people are up to shenanigans, right? One of their signs says, we don't want Biden, we want revenge. Let me read that again. We don't want Biden. I mean, it's so quick to just toss out Trump. We're no longer talking about Trump. Nobody's hating on Trump. No more F Trump. We don't want Biden. Biden's been in office not even a day here. I mean, he's officially in at noon on, I think, Wednesday. We don't want Biden. We want revenge for killings committed by police officers and fascist massacres. All right, that's what they want. And so to get their point across, they light garbage on fire. All right. In a city that has seen months of demonstrations, and they have been hammering on Portland, just hammering on Portland. City that has seen months of demonstrations over racial injustice, economic inequality, federal law enforcement, and corporate power. And some of the harshest law enforcement responses to such protests, protesters have vowed to continue their actions no matter who is president. We are ungovernable, one sign in the crowd said. Okay, so what are we going to do with you? Lock them up. That's kind of what I say, right? I mean, if it's one thing to use your First Amendment right to free speech, but when you are breaking other people's stuff, that's a hard line for me. And it's like, all right, lock them up. But we're not gonna. We're gonna talk about it like Mayor Ted has been talking about it. He's going to meet with law enforcement. He's going to meet with other authority figures, and he's going to try and figure out a plan because, we've got a new president in town, and this is not a good look. These protests, they're ongoing. It's crazy. It's crazy that this has been let go for this long. 200, and here's a tweet from Mike Baker, at Mike Baker. And I think he's the guy who wrote this article, and he is the Northwest correspondent from the New York Times, and I am reading from the New York Times. 200 left-wing protesters are on the streets in Portland right now with anti-Biden and anti-police messages. We are ungovernable, one sign says. And it's for those of you on the podcast who can't see what's going on, the video starts out with two people clad in black, because black is such a good look. We don't want Biden. We want revenge. And it's got an anarchy, the standard A with a circle around it. It's got a semi-automatic rifle. And then it's got a circle with the 3 down arrows, which is another fascist, whatever. I don't know. And they're talking about 4 police murders, fascist massacres, and whatever else that they have on there. And a partridge in a pear tree. How about that? Let's just throw that in there, and we've got everything covered. That's what we are against. Therefore, we will light some garbage on in the street, and we'll protest around, and we'll have this sign with a bunch of stuff on it. And that's what they're up to. In Seattle, about 150 people marched with large banners that said, abolish ICE, no cops, prisons, borders, or presidents. Let's look at that. Let's take a brief look at that. Abolish ICE, okay? So they don't want any immigration control. Just let people go willy-nilly, just free for all there. All right. No cops? Well, take police out of this picture. That's an interesting scenario. Anarchy, I believe. Prisons? No prisons. Just let everybody out. Let's see how that worked. When Fidel Castro did that in Cuba, how did that work for Miami? Pretty good. Have you seen the movie Scarface? Not so good. And so much of Miami is still based upon a lot of what happened there. I mean, some pretty gnarly stuff, right? I mean, you had some pretty bad dudes coming in by the boatload, literally by the boatload, as he dumped out their prisons. We don't want any borders. No borders between countries, just free for all. Yep, you can go wherever you want, live wherever you want. There's no cops. This is great. It kind of reminds me of the movie The Purge, right? When you've got this window of time where you can do damn well whatever you want, and everybody has to batten down the hatches on their homes, because during the Purge, people might they might do something to you and your family. And that kind of reminds me of what would probably happen if you abolished ICE. There weren't any police officers, no real law, or no enforcement of the law. There's no prisons because, you let everybody out and do their thing. You've got no borders. They're just free for all in countries, or presidents. Nobody to lead the way. Crazy. Some spray painted buildings with an anarchist symbol and broke windows, including at a federal courthouse. That's the Nakamura courthouse in Seattle. Seattle police officers followed the group and began to surround it as night fell, because the issues always seem to happen in dark, right? I mean, you can get away with more in the dark. It's harder for cameras to pick up who you are, facial recognition, all that good stuff. You can't really tell. And somebody in these groups always comes prepared with a paintball gun, because then they're going to shoot the cameras out, security, if there's really something that they want to do. Or they're just going to shoot other people. Or they're just going to shoot buildings, because, They don't want anything to do with this. Well, you really shouldn't shoot your paintball in an urban environment. It's not good for people, things, or pretty much anybody. In Portland, police officers scuffled with protesters before the march began. Yeah, they're just going after it right off the bat. It's like when boxers, some boxing matches, they kind of prance around and they're trying to get a read on what their opponent's going to do. And then after like half a round, they start throwing punches. This wasn't one of those fights. This was just go time. This was Mike Tyson for about half his career, coming out of the gate, swinging so hard that if he hit something, boom, it went down. And that worked for him for quite a while. I don't know if you guys watched any of those fights. And sorry, gals, if you're not boxing fans, I totally understand. But I was an enormous Mike Tyson fan because just watching that guy was like, what is going to happen now? And I remember one fight that was at a pretty expensive pay-per-view. That was back in the day of really expensive pay-per-view. My kids were really little, like, 5 and 3 or something. They were a handful. And we went over to our neighbor's house to watch the Mike Tyson fight, the first fight after he got out of prison, I believe. One of my kids was monkeying around and just doing something, screwing around the way little kids do, especially boys. They don't want to watch the fight. They just want to just play grab ass with each other, whatever it was. And so I had to take care of something. And in the time frame it took me, and the fight had just started. So this is like, oh my gosh, I just want to watch this fight. And in the time it took me to kind of square away my kids, Mike Tyson had he had knocked the dude out, whoever it was. I can't remember. I don't remember. But it was like that fast is how quickly those things happen. So yeah, this protest here, that was the equivalent of a Mike Tyson fight, right? Post-prison. He was upset. He was angry. He was on the comeback. So later in Portland, police officers scuttled with protesters before the march began. Later, they made some arrests. We're doing some arresting. But unfortunately, none of these arrests really ever amount to anything, do they? I would love to see all of these people who have been arrested. I want to see a protesters, I want to say chalkboard, but that's not the dashboard, because we've got a dashboard for complaints on the police. I talked about that in a podcast yesterday. And if you look at the dashboard for police accountability in Seattle, it is hilarious because there's 19,000 complaints and most all of them are not sustained, not sustained, not sustained, not sustained. You guys are making complaints about the most Mickey Mouse things. And these aren't really complaints. These are the police officers are out there doing the best they can. And you guys are complaining about them because if you throw enough stuff against the wall, maybe something will stick. Well, not much, because none of the cops in Seattle have been fired over those complaints, nor have they even been disciplined. I mean, you got a couple of these complaints and it's like, yeah, but really? No. Watch that podcast. I don't even know what it's called, but I kind of went through a lot of the complaints and was like, yeah. The headlines are such that police are reprimanded. They're not even reprimanded yet, but they may have done a couple of things wrong. They may have had a blast ball go in an errant. They threw a blast ball overhand. Now we're going to have to teach them how to wind up like female softball players and really scoot that blast ball in there. That's what I think we need to do. Underhanded. You guys all need to do softball practice at the SPD. Let's get that going. That's what I'd be doing. No, I wouldn't. That would be, you're doing what? I don't know. It seemed like a good idea. We got caught for overhanded throwing. Let's go with underhanded. Let's see how these guys can sling that blast ball in there. At a separate demonstration in Portland, people gathered to hear speakers who celebrated former President Donald J. Trump's departure, but called for continued pressure for government action. So we're always just going to hear that, right? The fight has just begun, said Ray Austin, 25. Because Ray Austin, at age 25, you've been through so much. You have seen just history repeat itself. I mean, you have been out of high school for a solid 7 years. You were probably living in your parents' house within the last decade, if not still now, because so many millennials, housing has become so expensive that you can't afford your own home at age 25, or even 35 for that matter, half the time. So Ray Austin, with your infinite wisdom at age 25, he said the damage done by Mr. Trump could not be undone by the likes of President Biden. which gives them a hall pass to do everything because more change is needed. And so the best way to get change is to create destruction. That's what I'm learning here on the Seattle Real Estate Podcast, that the best way to get your message out there is to do some peaceful protesting to start, but then you've got to morph into the destruction, smashing out windows, tagging things, and saying slogans over and over and over, because that gets your message across. But the damage done by Mr. Trump can't be undone by President Biden, and that the nation needed a groundswell of people demanding more. All right, that might be true, but the way that we're going about it here, I disagree with wholeheartedly. I don't agree with your methodology. I wouldn't even probably talk to you on the street because you are so far out in left field, literally, that, I don't know, I'm not going to waste my time on you. But I am going to talk about it on a podcast because it's good material. Speakers at the event called for the Green New Deal to fight climate change. A Medicare for all. This is the Christmas wish list of the protesters. Speakers at the event called for the Green New Deal. We need that Green New Deal to fight climate change. Because world hunger and all that other good stuff, peace, not at the top of the priority. Climate change. Climate change right up there. Second, a Medicare for all style health insurance system. All right. Overhauls of police departments to address racial disparities. I thought we'd already done that. And other fundamental changes. A partridge in a pear tree. That's what they're looking for. So if this is what we can expect from the new presidential administration, I don't know. This is something else. I mean, continuing the protesting after President Trump is no longer in office? What? I thought this was all about F Trump. I mean, that's what they said. That's what all their signs said. But they did say a bunch of other stuff. And they're not getting any of it. All they're doing is randomly, at times, sometimes, getting arrested. They're doing a lot of destruction. I give them an A for destruction. For causing havoc, they get a solid A. I mean, not an A minus, not an A plus, because I think they're kind of, when they do a little bit of destruction and then they get arrested, then they just quit so quickly because they're like, we don't want to get caught. We don't really want to deal with that. So no A plus for the peaceful protesters who are not quite so peaceful. But yeah, I mean, this has nothing to do with the new administration, right? I mean, this has nothing to do with Trump to Biden. But you can make the argument that, in the era of a new administration, what is President Biden doing watching fireworks? He needs to be working on this stuff. We got to work on our Green New Deal. We got to work on our health insurance system. We got to work on overhauls of our police departments to address racial disparities and other fundamental changes. President Biden, I can't stand by and just idly watch you do your inauguration thing and watch the fireworks. That's a no-go for me. Now, the guy got elected president. He's going to enjoy some of that stuff. Then he'll get to work. That's what's going on. But that is basically how the media treated Trump, right? I mean, right from the get-go. I don't remember if you guys watched the presidential election back in 2016, but that was eye-opening. Because I was over on Maui. I'd just flown in from Maui, and I might have told this story before, but I was literally, I'd booked into my hotel, whatever it was, and I was going through the TV, and I'm trying to figure out all the channels, and it was like somebody had died in national media. I mean, it was like, it was quiet. It was super, super somber, and everybody's like, I can't believe this is happening. Oh, this is terrible. So we had 4 years of that, right? And now we've got Biden in office. Oh, if he doesn't make some changes very quickly, people are going to start talking. Yeah, I think they might. What about all the change he talked about on an inauguration day in his inauguration speech? Where is all of that? So little of that is going to happen. You guys have all been around. You know what that was. That was a politician, a lifetime politician, 47 years. I was thinking about that the other day. Joe Biden's been a politician for 47 years. He started politicking when I was 5, and I'm not super young. I'm in my early 50s. So that's how long this guy has been around. He's just a lifetime politician. He's going to say a lot of stuff, whatever stuff it takes to get him in office. And that's what he's done. How much of that is he going to get done? I don't think that much. I mean, I honestly don't. He'll get some stuff. It'll be like, oh, whatever. Whatever, guy. New president. So that's where we are, day 1 of the new presidency. We've got protesters who are saying, doesn't matter who's in office. We're going for our things of change. And until we get them, we're going to keep doing our thing. The fight has just begun, according to Ray Austin, 25. He's going to hold us to it. They're going to just keep being out there doing some peaceful protesting until such time as it's no longer considered peaceful because there's a new administration and they're calling for change too. Hey, you guys in black, knock that off. Going to have that at some point in here pretty soon. Probably in the next 6 months, I would guess. Some pretty major crackdowns. I would see that coming because this no longer fits the narrative, does it? Really doesn't. But as these stories keep coming across my desk, and so many of you guys have sent these in. Best way to get a hold of me, if you've got a new story you want me to read, email it to me. I am no longer able to return phone calls. I can barely get back the phone calls I need to on a business level on my 2 businesses. And so I am not able to call anybody back. I would love to be able to call and chat with people, hear what they're saying, hear what you're saying, hear what you want me to talk about. Best way is to email me, Sean at seattlerealestatepodcast.com. And my first name is spelled S-E-A-N. Yes, I am of Irish/Scottish descent, and that's how we spell it. You pronounce it Sean, but the real pronunciation is Sean. It's the Irish version of Sean, right? So Sean at Summit Property, no, well, you can send an email there too, but Sean at SeattleRealEstatePodcast.com. Tell me what you're thinking. Let me know. I do read all the email that comes through. I can't respond to everything, just like I can't get to phone calls. And the reason I can do email so much better is I can read your email, do whatever I need to do, come back to it later, think about it, respond, get a quick response off. I can't do that with a phone call. And I have so many people that call me and want to talk to me at this point, and I'm not humble bragging here. That's where I don't know if you've heard of humble bragging, but it's a real thing in the fitness industry. It's where you say something if I am so honored to be the greatest human being alive. Thank you for this great, great honor. That's a humble brag right there, right? So I'm not saying, hey, I got so many people contacting me because I'm so important. I'm just saying you guys are all reaching out and that is awesome, but I can't get back to you all. So if you want to email me, awesome. Phone calls, pretty much a no-go because those mean I'm committed to doing one certain task for probably a minimum of 15 minutes, and then my day goes out the window. So at this point in time, it's all about time management for me. And then other people, I know I'm rambling here, but if you guys find this ramble entertaining, hey, thanks for being here for this long. Other people have said, hey, you own a couple of real estate businesses. How does this whole podcasting thing benefit you? Let me run you through that really quick. It gets my name out there. I am the digital mayor of who knows what we consider this, the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle rioters, whatever it is. I have more people watching me for that than just about anybody else around. I'm a middle-aged guy talking on a microphone, and so I bring in people who are the ideal demographic that advertisers want to see. So I have one of the highest CPMs in YouTube. If you look at all the other YouTubers and see what they're getting paid for 1,000 impressions per ad, and now we're kind of talking some numbers here on how we make money. But our channel has been monetized since last June, and we make money on ads placed on our videos. And you might think, well, how much can you make? We can make some pretty good money. Go look at Tim Pool's views. That guy's got a pretty good CPM. But my demographic is heavily weighted in the 45 to 65 age range, up to age 70. Now you might say, well, why would you want them? Because those people have money and they are willing to spend it. And the advertisers are like, we want to advertise on Sean Reynolds' YouTube podcast because he's got a demographic that is, it's right up there. People are listening to him that have money. So you got all these fitness influencers, you got these young kids. Their demographic is kids that are super young. They don't have any money. Even people in their 30s have a different demographic. So I have one of the highest CPMs out there, and it's because I'm talking to you guys and you guys watch. And so for an old white dude, real estate guy, I can do pretty well on YouTube. And that's just AdSense from Google. Google owns YouTube. AdSense pays, it pays us very, very well. What does that look like? It is definitely 5 figures if we have a solid month. And it is not low 5 figures. It's some pretty good money. You'd be like, wow. But we've also had, a ton of you guys watch our content. And that's what makes all of this go, is that we've got viewership. We've got more views. I think we just hit 10 million views. And we've only got 43,000 subscribers. So we've got a very small targeted subscriber base that's ever growing. And thank you for doing all that and subscribing and passing it along, because that's kind of what's making this go. But as we grow, if we had 100,000 subscribers, we could be looking at a ton more money. And I'm just being transparent with you. And all the other YouTubers, they do a video on how much money I made in my first year in YouTube. I'm probably not going to do that, but I am telling you, hey, I am not doing this for free. I'm making some pretty good money, and that's part of business, right? And I want to keep growing, and I want to keep providing good content for you guys. So part of that is coming back to this whole thing I'm talking about is time management. And on my end, is I am dedicated to doing as many podcasts as I can. So I got to talk into this microphone. And when I'm doing that, I'm not on the telephone calling anybody. So that's where we are at. Thank you so much for being here and subscribing and all that good stuff. I'm going to keep going as long as you guys keep watching and listening and tuning in. That's what we're doing here in Seattle on the Seattle Real Estate Podcast, where we make a lot of fun of Seattle because it's an easy target, right? Okay, thanks for being here. Again, I'm Sean Reynolds from Summit Properties Northwest, Reynolds and Kline Appraisal. I will catch up with you guys on the next one. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.